Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte, and we are taking a look today at the latest on the Ottawa Senators. Are we starting to see a little bit of a changing of the guard in Ottawa? A little bit of a change in mindset. Now, we know the Blue Jackets. We know the Ottawa Senators have been rebuilding for a couple of years now, but is Pierre Dorion finally starting to look at the market in terms of, all right, maybe we're going to keep some of these guys, and we're going to try and add and actually make the team better so they could get back to the playoffs. Mind blowing. Never mind. Pretend I never said that, Dorian. You just stay where you're at. It's fine. Right? So we're going to go over that today. So the first couple reports here are from Bruce Garrioch. Senators defender Artem Zub won't be moved before the deadline. There hasn't been any discussion. Don't know where rumors came from, but it's not happening. Now, Artem Zub has been a pretty good defenseman. I think once the Senators get better and you look at some of the guys in the pipeline, as long as they develop, hopefully, like Lassie Thompson, Eric Brandstrom, you go down the list, some of those guys develop, and who's the American they just drafted? Jake Sanderson. Once those guys come in, you're probably not going to talk about Zub anymore. But for the meantime, he's been a serviceable defenseman, but his contract is up. So is this Pierre Dorion saying, listen, we're going to finally start taking a chance. He's not a big enough guy. If we lose him, it's not that big of a deal. We don't need the 4th or 5th round pick for Zub, but we'd like to try and keep him. I think that's something they're going to figure out. Also from Bruce Garrioch, Senators GM Pierre Dorion has gotten calls on Michael Del Zotto from some teams looking for a veteran depth defender. He is, in quote, definitely on a couple of teams, in quote, radar. So Michael Del Zotto, I could see being a fit in a couple of different spots. Now, he obviously has an interesting past. If you look up Michael Del Zotto, you could say the working industry. He's dated a couple of pretty interesting people, but we're not talking about that today. Michael Del Zotto to the Rangers could be a fit. Maybe that's something that deters him. Maybe he's like, I'm trying to forget that whole time. Maybe I don't want to go back to New York. Even Philadelphia, the Flyers aren't a playoff team, but the Rangers could be something. Maybe that doesn't work. I could see the Leafs being a fit. I think the Leafs are a team to look out for there. They've been tied to Justin Braun over in Philly. Kind of a similar defenseman, honestly. Justin Braun's better, but you get what I'm saying. Maybe a team like LA, maybe the Kings go after a guy like that as just some depth defense. So there'll be a couple teams in there for Michael Del Zotto, and he's been in the NHL for almost 2 decades. I mean, he's been there for a while. He's like a dinosaur at this point, and could be a nice depth piece for a playoff team. Maybe even the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Florida Panthers. I could see something there. So what's next? So now, away from Michael Del Zotto and his interesting life, Frank Saravelli, Senators forward Nick Paul is leaning towards testing free agency this summer. I think the Senators, we talked about that a couple weeks ago, were trying to gauge where Nick Paul was at, trying to have some early preliminary contract extension talks, and I think Nick Paul said, listen, you guys aren't great, and kind of going with the, it's not you, it's me, but it's kind of you too. I want to move, and I think that Nick Paul will do that. Nick Paul is a guy, he's got a captaincy. He's an alternate captain in Ottawa, and I think it's just one of those things, like the time has come where he's going to want to get traded. So I think he will get traded by the deadline. I think that's a pretty foregone conclusion. I think the Senators are kind of saying, listen, he wants to test the market. We're not a playoff team. No reason to keep him at this point. Really no discussion beyond that. So, according to Jeff Merrick, wild draft pick Jack McBain could set his own future if he decides to test free agency, which would be August 15th. There's some speculation Minnesota might trade his rights at the deadline. Now, the reason I have that there is I think there's an interest in maybe finding a way to get a deal done here. The reason I say that is, could the Ottawa Senators be a player for McBain? That's a player that, again, it doesn't hurt to try, right? And the reason I say that is another report from Sean Simpson, hearing the Ottawa Senators are interested in Kevin Fiala from Minnesota. He has 1 year left on his deal at $5.1 million. He's an RFA in the summer. Would be perfect in terms of fit for the top 6 of the Ottawa Senators. So now you trade Fiala and McBain for, you figure it out, but that would be interesting. And I think this is something that will get done in the summer, quite frankly. Again, I don't see the Wild having interest in trading him before the deadline. I don't see the Senators, like, they're going to probably get worse and try and get a higher draft pick. So they don't need to trade for Fiala here at the deadline. There's no need to do that. Figure that out in the summer. But I think McBain and Fiala are two guys that you should keep an eye on if you're a Senators fan. See what Pierre Dorian's mindset is. Maybe making a trade with the Minnesota Wild. And if he's been scouting the Minnesota Wild, don't be surprised. Those are the two guys that he would be having interest in terms of maybe trying to figure out a trade, especially for Kevin Fiala. But I just figured they were talking about McBain, and that could also be another fit there. Again, the Senators have holes to fill, and maybe if the Wild are willing to maybe say, listen, if you take a bad contract of ours, will you go down that route? And maybe the Senators will say yes. So that is it on the Ottawa Senators. Pierre Dorian, again, it sounds like he's kind of making the shift. He may trade Del Zotto. He may want to try to keep a guy like Zub. Nick Paul could be on his way out, but they're tied to maybe adding players. Maybe this summer, maybe a guy like Kevin Fiala. He would be a great scoring winger in the top 6 for the Ottawa Senators. The question is, can they make a fit there? Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.